What's going on, everybody, and welcome to the other side of the firewall, where we discuss the latest in cybersecurity news, as well as those movers and shakers and glass ceiling breakers, those people of color who've made it to the other side of the proverbial firewall. My name is Ryan Williams, and as always, I'm joined by Shannon Tynes.
What's up? What's up?
And LeVon Maynard.
What up?
What is going on? So we're on to our discussion topic. So if you're tuning in sequential order, you have Monday, where we discuss Google's, or I should say our inability to cut off Google search features because of different tactics that they may be using on purpose or not on purpose. No one really knows. Then on Tuesday, we talked about Revil, the ransomware gang that is being cited as the JBS attackers of the food distribution pipeline type situation, and how America is not playing that. So that's a very interesting conversation where basically they're posturing their side, saying that they will attack more American companies because we're getting into other people's business, which is our business. But you have to tune in for that one. Today, though, is a discussion, right? So we try to do a discussion every week where we talk about something to do with cybersecurity and just our different takes on it. So this one is pretty interesting. I had to read it a couple of times to make sure I understood it. But it's an article on Threat Post written by Elizabeth Montalbano, and it is titled Supreme Court Limits Scope of Controversial Hacking Law. So I didn't really know much about this one. Apparently, it's a pretty big one. It's called the CFAA, and it is the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. So I remember it. It's discussed when going for my degree, as well as the CISP, but my understanding of it or interpretation of the law is different, apparently, than what it's actually used for or how the Supreme Court ruled in this case. So again, it's a very short article, but I had to read it a couple of times. In it cites that there's a landmark ruling of Van Buren versus the United States. So Van Buren, he was a former Georgia police sergeant who was slapped with this, as well as jail time. Basically, what he did was he used his credentials to log into his laptop, which I believe was in his patrol car, to run a plate and gather information. But he was doing it after receiving a bribe. So he was not doing it for work. He was doing it for profit. They don't really go into great detail how he was caught. However, he was slapped with the CFAA. It kept being upheld until it got to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court flipped it. And it basically said he was guilty of bribery, of taking a bribe and profiting. However, he used his own credentials to access the system. Therefore, he did not violate the CFAA, which is a different interpretation than I perceived it to be. In this ruling, it was 6-3, and the dissenting judges were, which also surprised me, it was Chief Justice Clarence Thomas, Samuel Alito, and John Roberts. All found him to be in breach of the CFAA, and the other justices said he was not, because the way they interpreted it was that he used his own credentials to access the system. So basically, he was not hacking the laptop to get to the database to get the plate information, which is true. So again, I'm not a lawyer, but I always thought it was a thing like if you use the system for unintended purposes, like in this case, he used the system to do something that was unlawful, that he would be in violation of this law, but apparently not. And they're saying this is landmark, right? So it may change the way we see the law and how the law is used in that case. But I've been doing a lot of talking. So what do you guys think about this?
Oh no, you've been doing good. You're teaching me about this situation, because that's very interesting. I didn't know a lot about this case, but it's I guess, as you described it, it seems like I guess it's probably appropriate that, he has access to this data. It's not like like you said, he wasn't hacking into the database to try to access somebody's license plate information. As long as he was hemmed up for, taking a bribe and providing information to, this, whatever you want to call it, like some shady figure.
Whomever. Yeah, it doesn't really go into that detail.
Yeah. somebody with ties to criminal activity. As long as you hit him for that, it seems appropriate. Whatever charges were. It looks like he was sentenced to 18 months in prison.
Yeah.
I guess for taking a bribe. That seems kind of low, but maybe that's appropriate for taking $6,000. But yeah, I guess the fact that he had access to this data. I mean, it wasn't like like you said, it wasn't like he hacked into a database to acquire it. He just logged in, went to any place that he normally has access to. And I'm kind of curious about how they if they monitor like police activity on their devices. If they can I just, as a police officer, can I just go into my computer and just like, you know what, I want to see, I don't know, an old boss's like information. Like I want to find out where he lives now, or what his license plate is, or if he's been hemmed up or anything, got any kind of court.
Right.
I'm curious what the cops have if the computers are like monitored to a certain extent where they can see each record that a cop has looked at over a period of time. I think that would be smart if they do that. I'm not sure if they do or not, but it seems like it would be appropriate to be able to monitor like what the account has been accessing throughout the duration of their employment. But yeah, I guess offhand, it seems like this would probably be appropriate response. I mean, I had to read up a little bit more about the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, but I guess just reading the title of it, I mean, as you described, it seemed like it wasn't so much, I guess, computer fraud, and maybe it was maybe abuse of its power, but
Right.
I don't know if that's specified in that act. But nonetheless, I'm glad that he got hemmed up. I'm glad he got some jail time. Obviously, he's no longer a cop, and I guess we have to see what kind of like. Maybe I have to do some research and I'd be curious, like I said before, curious to know what kind of how they track police officer activity on their devices. But how about you, Shannon? You have some thoughts on this?
So I do. So like the key phrase they're keying on here is exceeds authorized access, right? So to something that you bring up, LeVon. So what if you have an officer that's looking up an old girlfriend or boyfriend for whatever purposes or whatever, right? You as a police officer have access to information the general public does not, right? In the performance of your duties, yes, you should be looking these things up. But if you're looking them up, for personal gain, like it seems like it does violate this act. That's not authorized access, right? You're not using it in the performance of your duties. You're using it for a personal reason or whatever. Now, granted, he did get jail time for the bribery,
Bribery,
right?
yeah.
For the $6,000, but yeah, it's a little weird to me. I'm with you Ryan. I don't see how they ruled the way they did. I would see it going the other way. Like I don't know.
Which it did until it reached the Supreme Court level.
Right. No, I'm saying from the Supreme Court, like overturning.
Right.
Like I figured they would have upheld it, I guess is what I should say. I figured it would have upheld, but
Right.
I don't see how. I don't know the position that the officers are putting in the accesses that they have seem like this is clear cut in violation of that. What is it, 1986, whatever?
Yeah, 1986.
Yeah, law
is when it went through.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's weird to me. Yes, you got him for the bribery. I get that, right? It's like getting Al Capone for taxes. Like there was bigger things going on. To me, it seems like there was a bigger thing going on here that you just couldn't bring him down for. And I don't know.
Yeah, so I can see it. It's just I would not interpret it that way, because I guess they're going for like you're in violation of CFAA from the Supreme Court's perspective. You were in violation of CFAA if you escalated your privileges to exceed what you currently had. So if he had, like, I don't know, what does it be, like IAM or whatever? If he was like he was able to access this database and this database with his credentials without having to use someone else's, or getting in there and elevating his privileges to like level 3 to access this data, then he is not in violation. He is a violation of criminal stuff, like to do with the bribery and to whatever else they pin him, like abuse of power, all that stuff. But he is not a hacker because he did not exceed the level of his predefined privileges. I think that's where they're going with this. And it could be also, it's like, again, this law is pretty old, like from 1986. Like this law is only 3 years younger than myself. So it could be that it's over time. It's it the verbiage is dated. It could be that. So they're reading it verbatim. It could also be that the judges, obviously they're a little bit older in age. Maybe their interpretation of it is different than maybe the judges at the different levels due to age. I don't know. But again, the act is pretty old, so it could be just this not it hasn't been updated in some time. So this may cause that to happen.
And usually, whenever this happens, that's what the Supreme Court will say is that you need to update the law. Like whenever they
Right.
go to something that's like from the 20s or 30s or 40s or something like that, they will like the interpretation of this as it is written is this, right? So like if you want it to
Right.
change, you need to you either need to put a new one on the books or update this one to where it's for the times. But even with this, the way I read it, it seems like I don't know. I mean, I understand the point. I understand the words you are saying, but my interpretation of it is not
Right.
for what they came up with. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's
I'm not good at law. So
yeah,
I'm not a lawyer either. I'm not a lawyer.
yeah.
Either.
So yeah, I feel differently than you do, Shane. I feel like and I'm on the Wikipedia looking at Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, and I'm going through some of the some of the clauses or whatever you want to call them.
So give me 10 minutes. Let me get on there real quick. And
Yeah,
then
yeah, get on there and read it.
You'll agree with me. You'll agree with me. Give me 10 minutes.
No, because it's like it's kind of very specific to like the main first one is like having knowingly access a computer without authorization or exceeding authorized access. And it's like kind of like I touched on before, like what level of access can you access anybody's data? Like a police officer can just log into the computer and just look at, their old boyfriend, girlfriend, like you mentioned, or a boss or some co-worker somewhere, or some other person they know, family member. Are they able to do that without being punished? If somebody finds that you were looking at something, will they get punished for that? Or they can just do that at the whim? I feel like in that regard, like they definitely should be, punished for looking up data that's not related to the job activities. But I guess according to this particular law or this act, it doesn't have any reference to like, and I just kind of glanced through. I didn't read the whole thing verbatim, but point by point. But it looks like it's really kind of specific on getting access to a computer that you don't have access to. Like if you were, I don't know, if you were an employee at a company and you had one account that gave you access to your email, but then you gain access to like the database, some way, or some
So
domain
like
server or something like that.
mixing up between like HR and finance or something like
Right. Yeah. Something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Next system or
Yeah. You access something that you wouldn't typically have access to. And like, yeah, it says in here, intentionally accesses a protected computer without authorization, and as a result of a conduct recklessly causes damage or losses and stuff like that. So it seems kind of specific, and I think maybe, like you said, maybe it needs to be updated, or maybe there's some other act someplace else that has more specifics to, police officer that's using confidential data to, gain something or whatever. But I think I kind of agree with the Supreme Court, and I'm not sure what the other judges why they differed in opinion. Kind of going with the chain. I know it had different levels of courts that it went through, but I feel like the Supreme Court maybe made the right decision. But then again, I'm kind of like looking at it like in the last like 3 minutes that I've been talking here to kind of get an idea as far as what it's all about. But maybe if I dig into it a little bit more, I see some more nuances that I'd be like, oh man, they should have got the cop for that too. But right now, I think I'm kind of on the other side.
Yeah. So there's two things that we kind of, or there's one thing that we buried in here. But I wanted to read basically the rebuttal from the who's the lead of it. I believe it came from Judge Roberts. Yeah. So Justice Roberts, he said, a person's entitled to do something only if it has I'm sorry, I got to read that again. A person is entitled to do something only if he has a right to do it. And then it goes on to say, Van Buren never had a right to use the computer to obtain the specific license plate information. Everyone agrees that he obtained it for personal gain, not for a valid law enforcement purpose. So they were towing the line that Shannon's towing. Like, yeah, he had access, but he did it for malicious purposes. So then it will fall within the act. However, the other justices are basically saying like, no, he had access to the computer. Like, yes, what he did was wrong, but it wouldn't be considered
Unauthorized access. It's not
unauthorized because he was authorized to use the system. So, they don't really go into detail, but I'm sure they found it through an audit, or maybe there was other stuff pending against him, and that's why they started to dig through logs. Like, what has he been doing to correlate what he did?
The other person, the person that paid him, probably got caught and dimed him out. That's usually
it could be that too. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Unless you commit a crime with yourself, somebody is there to tell on you, right? Like that's
right.
how it goes.
Yeah,
yeah,
that's true.
Well, what we buried was that. So it's being seen as a boon for ethical hackers. This new ruling. The Electronic Frontier Foundation, or EFF, basically says a victory for all internet users. It says prosecute beneficial and important online I messed that up. Saying that it should now prevent misuse of the CFAA to prosecute beneficial and important online activities. It affirmed that online services cannot use the CFAA's criminal provisions to enforce limitations on how or why you use their service, including for purposes such as collecting evidence of discrimination or identifying security vulnerabilities. So basically, it's saying that we now have more rights because of this ruling.
So what that reminds me of reading that was do you remember it was last year though, depending on how you look at it, the whistleblower in Florida when it came to COVID, like she ran that dashboard. Do you guys remember this? So like they went and raided her home, but the point her defense is making is that she had access to the dashboard, that she was changing information depending on how you read it, right, or how it comes out. So one side will say she was changing information and wasn't doing what she was supposed to do. She was like, I was giving the correct information that you guys were not wanting to get out there to the public. It was the same thing though. Like she had access to those dashboards. She had, she was authorized to do what she was doing, but again, depending on what side you're on, some people didn't like the numbers that were shown. Some people liked the numbers that are shown. And it was one of those things where the state of Florida doesn't want her to doesn't think she deserves whistleblower protections, right? Because of what she did, right? And that's kind of what you were reading. That's kind of what it makes me think, is that all these people are going to go out here and start doing these things and be like, no, I'm a whistleblower. You know what I mean? I'm giving you information that should be out there, that if you do that, one of the things with becoming a whistleblower is you have to make sure you're doing it to the benefit of whether it be society or whatever intended group, whatever group maybe getting wronged, right? It's like with Snowden, right? That's what comes out. Like, you may have some people that say, oh, he's a whistleblower, but you have some people that are like, hey, look, he cost people their lives. You know what I mean? There were operatives out there. There were things that were going on that he put out there that may have caused people to die. You know what I mean? So was that in the benefit of people to know, hey, you're being spied on, through, your phones or whatever it may be? And I think that's where this is going to get very slippery. So like, ethical hackers are saying, yes, we're doing this to the benefit of everyone, but depending on what information they put out there, that may not be the case, right?
Right.
You're going to start clogging up the courts with these cases where people are like, no, I did it for the greater good. And I don't know. We'll have to see how this all turns out.
But it's only, so I get what you're saying, but it's only one less charge though. Like if you sign an NDA, or if you're in breach of the EULA or what have you, like you still gonna get it. You still get that fine. You still get that jail time. They just can't slap this on top of it. Like they don't have another provision to hit you with. So you still can't be out there just doing nonsense. Like you can't take down a water treatment plant through pen testing. Like, oh no, I was testing the defenses to make sure they were good, and I brought them down. Like, okay, you still going to jail.
Well, that's assuming every company does an NDA, right? So like, I'm not going to say every company does, but like working for Department of Defense, like there are things that like we just can't go out there and say and do, right?
Right.
I'm not necessarily going to call it an NDA, but there are things we see.
But you still have a user agreement.
Yeah.
Like so there's always going to be that. Well, we say that because we work for companies that have user agreements, right? So, but if you have a company that has a CISO or a department that's doing what they're supposed to be doing, then you'll have some kind of user agreement, so way you don't abuse your company's resources. So in a perfect world, like I'm sure some companies don't have that. Don't even know what I'm talking about right now. But if they were to have those provisions, you can still slap the person in the face with that. You just can't get them for the CFAA stuff potentially, because again, it goes to like, so they had the access to get that information and they did something wrong with it. So you still get them for the wrongdoing. You just can't say on top of it you are now also in violation of the CFAA.
So now I'm curious, right? So like I wonder if these big companies, if they're more worried about that or they're more worried about the proprietary information getting out, right? So like when you sign on for the
Right.
company, are they saying don't let this proprietary information leave our network or whatever? You know what I mean? Or they like I wouldn't know because I haven't signed on to a big company like that. You know what I mean? But
Right.
I'm curious if that's even something they're worried about, or if it's just losing money for something that they own, their own intellectual property. You know what I mean? That's
Yeah,
that's
it's true.
that's interesting.
Yeah. So I'm sure there'll be like, because like from my understanding, like when the Supreme Court rules on something, it flips the other courts, right? So now they've gotten the court
The highest
of,
court in the land is what they
there
call
you
it.
go, there you
Highest
go. That's
court
what I'm
in the
going
land.
for. The highest court of land said this, so the rest should then fall in lockstep with them, unless they try to go up and try to appeal it again. But I think once they rule on it, it's over, right? Like you can bring it up again, but I mean they've already said like I said
You
what I
you
said.
you usually appeal. You usually appeal until you get to them and their decision is
Right.
final. You
Yeah, I was
appeal
gonna say
to
like
the
you
higher
can't.
court.
Yeah, there's nothing else that can be done about it. So like
Yeah,
this is now the law of the land.
there's no higher court to go to, so there's no
Yeah.
appealing the decision. So
Like I want to talk to your managers now. But no, I think that's interesting. So that was a good one this week. Make sure you tune in for the rest of the week. All those people in the audience, so you can hear. Again, we talked about Google and their latest lawsuit. We talked about Revel and their hard stance on their future attacks and
we'll
how they
see.
will not be deterred.
We'll see how long that lasts.
Right.
Yeah, and then obviously today we talked about the Supreme Court and this new ruling on the CFAA. So very interesting week, very diverse. So I like it. I don't know what the topic for Ask a CSP is because I haven't got any questions yet. But if you have a question, please hit me up. You can reach us at the website www.theothersideofthefirewall.com. And all the social medias will be listed in the description. You can reach me at RyRy Security Guy. It's RYRY Security Guy. I get most of my questions from LinkedIn, but you can also hit me up on Twitter, as well as when you see me on TikTok or Clubhouse. And LeVon,
Hit me up on the Twitters at LeVon Maynard.
there it is. So stay safe, stay secure.
Take care.